So, it's been a while. School's been taking up most of my life recently, but I have been working on the side though. So, in this devlog, I'll be going over 3 months of progress. And by that, I do mean 3 months of passive progress. Though I haven't been able to put in as much time as I'd like to, I do think that I have a substantial amount of additions to the game to show, and the additions that I do have to show off, I am very proud of. So, let's get into it. Well, first off, as you might have noticed, there is a new logo for the game, and the matching intro. Now, the reason that I changed it was because the old logo was split into 4 sections, as you can see here, to represent the 4 different dimensions that you'll be traveling throughout the game. However, as you guys know, that has now been moved down to 3 dimensions for a few reasons that I mentioned in a previous devlog that you can check out, but the short version of it was that there was too much empty space if we had 4 different dimensions. And, well, overall, it's also good design-wise to have things in uneven numbers. It's a lot more satisfying to look at. But if you want more information on that, you can go over to one of the older devlogs. I don't quite remember which one it was. But because of this, I decided to change the logo. Now, I went through a bunch of different iterations and versions. Now, I made sure to run a poll on the server that went over every single type of change and every single version that I've made, to see which one people like the most, and we ended up with this one. So this one is now the official logo for the game, as well as the logo for the server. The only thing that might change with the logo, I think, is some slight adjustments maybe, and a color change, but I'll get to that later on in this video. Now, also some good news outside of the game, but that still affects the game's development quite a bit, trust me. I recently got a new and upgraded laptop. This one is definitely a big improvement over the last laptop I had. I'm still obviously going to work very hard on making the game as optimized as I can have it, but now I can speed up my actual workflow a lot more with things like baking lighting and making higher quality models for the game, as well as editing for the devlogs. Because one of the big issues that you guys might have noticed is that a lot of the progress shown in these videos is just images or a quick short clip / GIF in very low quality. I'll put up a quick example here of what I made in an old devlog. Now, the main reason for that is because my old laptop wasn't really capable of doing anything together with recording, like, especially not Unreal. I couldn't run the actual game's project and record while playing, so I had to resort to taking either screenshots or using a program that makes little GIFs. Even on the lowest setting, I couldn't, sadly enough. Now, that's mainly because of the GPU on the old laptop. However, my new one has a GTX 2060 in it, which brings me to my next point. Now, before you guys get too excited, this part isn't 100% confirmed yet. The laptop's pretty new and I haven't yet had the chance to play around too much with the ray tracing in the Unreal project, but I would love to make it an option for people who can have it. So I'll probably experiment with it and discuss that and show some progress, and show some comparisons of what that would look like in a future video. Anyways, that's just a small segment. Now I want to really get into the meat of the new additions to the game, with the first one being... Now, in a previous devlog, I mentioned that you guys could expect to see the redesign for the power slot model in the next episode, and here it finally is. It's been done for quite some time, and I personally am quite happy with it. I tried to stay somewhat close to the original design and shape, but with a different art style that matches more with what we were going for now. The new redesign proved to be quite useful for another mechanic, which you will see later on in this video. But overall, I'm quite happy with it. It's definitely a big improvement, and yeah, that's about it. Now I want to discuss one little control feature that I've added to the game that people really wanted to see, and I've actually been suggested several times. Now, for context, in the demo, when you go a dimension up over the limit, which I guess in the demo would be 2, nothing would happen. You would just click the left mouse button, and nothing would happen because you'd already be in dimension 2. Now, a lot of times this would confuse the player, as they'd click the wrong button while jumping and miss and fall into a pit, and then we have to restart the level. Yes, I'm looking at this one specifically. Don't worry, it's been changed to be easier. Now when you go up past the dimensional limit, it loops back around to the first dimension. So for example, if you go up a dimension after being in dimension 3, it'll take you back to dimension 1. The same goes the other way around. When you click one down from dimension 1, it'll take you back to dimension 3. This will be a lot easier, especially in the early chapter where it's just 2 dimensions where you can just use one button to go back and forth. So I'm hoping people will enjoy this new little addition. Okay, so there is a lot to cover in this section, so try and stay with me. This was a series of events that led to a bunch of different mechanics being added to the game. So it all started with me wanting to change the gravity generator so that it would generate power based on an object weight. I mentioned in the previous devlog that I wanted to do more advanced puzzles with this in the future, where the amount of items and their cumulative weight actually decide the power level that is generated, and in turn decide the strength of a certain mechanic. The example I gave was that you were in a level and you were trying to open up a large door with this system by gathering as many items as you could and throwing them into the gravity generator, which would then slowly open up the door based on its power level. Of course, there's plenty of other possibilities that could be explored with this system, and I will. But now, to even accomplish this, I had to redesign the entire power system of the game so that it could support multiple inputs, as well as detect the amount of items within the gravity generator and get their cumulative weight. Now, it took like a week on its own to complete that, and I added a debug mode that can show you all of the items that are currently present within the gravity generator and their weight. So, that was done. The only thing I was missing was something to test this with. So I needed to add a simple mechanic that was fun, yet had a relative power. And the first mechanic that I decided to add to the game, so I could actually play around with this, was a launch pad. It's nothing too original, but I think it does really work well with the new gravity generator mechanics. And I decided to make it as modular as possible, so I can choose the maximum strength, the direction, the amount of energy actually needed to get to the maximum strength. So yeah, or whether or not it's a binary system where it's just on or off, depending on any input system. This will also be useful for some specific levels where it's powered by things other than the gravity generator. Now, to make it a bit more visually appealing, I decided to have an energy meter on the side of the launch pad that shows how much power is flowing through it and when you've reached the maximum amount. I personally love this mechanic. There are so many possibilities with this. It both works on players and objects, although it doesn't have a model as of right now, but all of the mechanics are functioning and have passed all the testing. I personally feel like this addition to the game will add a lot of much needed action and exciting platforming elements. It'll make it less of a walking simulator, because that is something that some people have said, so I want to try and add a bit more excitement in the platforming and puzzles. Now, one more other small addition that I made was that the little beam on the edge spins around when the gravity generator has power. I might change it to be that it spins based on the amount of energy that's being produced by the gravity generator. That shouldn't be too hard to do, and I think it would be fun. Of course, I would have to put a hard cap on it, though. Otherwise, people could just keep on adding items and have it spin too much. But yeah, as of right now, it just has an on and off thing that gently fades in and out whenever you have power. Now, making the new gravity generator gave me a lot of motivation, and it gave me the motivation to make 2 new mechanics to the game that I've been wanting to add since the base game of the idea, basically. This is something that I've been planning on making for ages, but I actually wasn't able to do so because I just didn't have the knowledge of blueprint coding. However, I'm a bit more confident in what I'm doing now, and so I present to you guys the Nitro cell and Nitro slots. Now, let me explain what these 2 new mechanics do. Let's start with the Nitro cell. The Nitro cell is basically a highly experimental and upgraded version of the power cell. It's 3 times as powerful, but highly unstable and explosive. They are not compatible with regular power slots. Now, that might not sound like a lot on its own, but when you take into account the addition of the new Nitro slots, things start to get interesting. These are an upgraded version of the power slot, the thing that actually accepts power cells. Now, power slots need a power cell to power an item. while Nitro slots have 3 levels of power, have 3 levels of energy that they can output. You can either insert 3 power cells into it to power it fully, or a single Nitro cell. This was a mechanic that I've been wanting to add since the start, and I've finally got it working. I think it's definitely a good addition to the game, and it makes for quite some challenging and interesting levels, actually. The hardest part about making this mechanic was inserting the power cells in the correct order and having the player be able to retrieve them back out of it in the reverse order. I managed to do this by saving the power cells that were put into the device into an array and then taking them out backwards. Now, as you can see, this also plays in with the whole different power levels, like with the gravity generator. You have 3 different levels of power based on how many power cells you have, or you can have full power if you have 3 power cells or a single Nitro cell. You can't, however, put in a single power cell and then a Nitro cell, because that'll overcharge. Same goes the other way around. You can't put in a Nitro cell and then put in any more power cells. You'll have to take it out first. Now, one feature that I'm thinking about adding to set the Nitro cells apart more from the power cells has to do with them being unstable. I'm stuck between 2 options and I'd like to know your guys' feedback. Either option 1, it can be moved around too fast or it will explode, which, as you can see here, I've kind of added an indicator for it, which is that the glowing strip in the power cell actually changes to red based on how fast it's moving, although for some reason it seems rather unstable with mouse and keyboard. This was inspired by a VR mechanic that I saw in a game once. However, I think it might just be better in VR. Now, the second option is that you can't travel through dimensions with a power cell or it also will explode. I tried this one as well, and this one does work. However, the issue seems to be that it would limit a bunch of level ideas. Now, right now I'm still experimenting with the ideas and maybe what else I can add to the Nitro cells to set them apart from the regular power cells. Maybe I'll leave both options and try something new, but as of right now, I'm not sure. If you guys have any fun ideas for how to set the Nitro cell apart a little bit more, feel free to leave it in the comments. But overall, as of right now, the mechanic is fully functional, both the Nitro cell and the Nitro slots. It's taken a lot of testing and a lot of development, maybe a bit more than it should have, but they're both fully functional. Now that we've gone over some of the new additions in mechanics, I want to go over some more visual elements that I've added to the game. Now, one thing that I haven't been showing on YouTube, but I have been showing in the server, so if you want to see more stuff like what I'm about to show to you early, you can always join the Discord server below. I've been passively working on a modular asset pack for the office areas in the game. It has got quite a decent amount of props in it, and is working quite well so far to make things not as repetitive and same-like as in the demo. Here's some screenshots to compare. I definitely like it. I can now go for a lot more diverse rooms, both in color and layout. I'm not fully finished yet. I do want to add some more office props to them, but as of right now, the majority of the office props are finished. So in regards to development, I actually haven't shown too much of the new level redesign. I was going to do that right after the last devlog, but then exams started, and it was definitely more than I thought I could. It was definitely harder than I thought it would be. But here we finally are again. Now, before I show you the new level design, here are some screenshots of the old ones. For comparison's sake, my goal was to go for a bit more of an original art style that was more inspired by Portal rather than directly ripped off. Because, I mean, come on, just look at that wall. That's basically the same wall as Portal. I will admit that. Anyways, I'm glad to say that the new style is something I'm definitely more happy with. Take a look. I'm quite happy with it. However, there's still one big issue I'm facing that I've yet to address, and I probably should have got to a lot earlier. I thought I had a color scheme that I liked for the game, and I do, but it clashes with the game design that I'm looking for. I personally love it in games when indicators are done through more subtle ways rather than just straight up text. In this case, I want to use colors as an indicator for dimensions. However, there are 3 dimensions, and that clashes with the color scheme that I originally took. And that style of color scheme is called a complementary color scheme. Complementary colors basically mean that they're colors that are at opposite ends of the color wheel, and so if they're put together, they enhance each other. In this case, I took orange and turquoise. I do personally like the color scheme, and a lot of people seem to agree. However, this did not take into consideration the 3rd dimension. The complementary color scheme was taken purely for the sake of having 2 dimensions as its 2 main colors. So to make this work, I would have to change my color scheme to something called a triad color scheme. A triad color scheme is basically where you pick 3 colors that form a perfect triangle on the color wheel. Now, this is where the issue lies. I decided to make a bunch of mock-ups going through all possible options of triad color schemes, as you can see here. And I would love to hear everyone's opinion on this. I can't really decide on my own. I have my personal favorite, which would be this one, with red being the 1st dimension, blue being the 2nd dimension, and yellow being the 3rd. I think it looks quite balanced, and it also takes away the style from Portal with a different color scheme, and actually makes me think more towards Mirror's Edge, which is also a very big inspiration in the art style of Orb. On top of this, I think it also has a nice player 1, 2, and 3 kind of element to it, because these tend to be the traditional colors for those players. Now, one thing that I have heard is that people have gotten attached to the orange-looking design from the demo and the updates, and I can definitely relate to that. One thing that I was thinking that I potentially could do as a solution was to have the office areas be the original color scheme, while the levels were painted to match the dimensions, as of course testing was meant to be done there, so it would make the most sense. But I'm not too sure whether that would clash with the style change that I'm trying to make right now. In any case, I am going to be changing the color palette for the game by the next devlog, and I would like your help. I've made a quick little survey that I've left the link for in the description. I'd appreciate it if you could just click the link and quickly go through it and help decide what the game is going to look like going forward. Any input in the survey or even in the comments is very welcome and appreciated. Whew. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all the additions that have been made to the game since I've been gone. It's definitely a bigger devlog than the other ones I've done so far, but it's also the most amount of content that I've ever had to go through. So I hope to go back to making devlogs and continuing the game, although don't expect any consistency from now on though, as I'm still in university and it's been taking up like 70% of my life as of right now. Yeah, they did not ease into this semester. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for sticking around and showing your interest and support. Maybe even leave a like or subscribe to the channel if you want to see more devlogs coming hopefully soon. And of course, for more frequent updates, you can always join our Discord server in the description. See you guys in the next one. Hopefully sooner than this one.